in Arizona. So I was there, and my goals for this year, I just plan to give as much knowledge as I can, so that way I can be a potential business owner in the future. So I'm just in DECA, so that way I can gain a lot of knowledge from it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I think I remember meeting you at WRLC, but you are definitely in the right place. I think that DECA gives us really great skills to use in the real world. And so we're just here to further those skills and focus on that leadership style, on that leadership aspect. So I'm sure you will get
Definitely.
Hunter, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Hunter Elsom. I'm the VP of fundraising at the Arborview High School DECA, and I'd say I'm looking most forward to really just improving my leadership skills this year. Yeah.
Awesome. It sounds like you guys are both here for the right reason. So thank you for sharing. Just to give you both a heads up, we are recording this session so that we can share it on YouTube again. And so if you ever need to refer back to it, you're welcome to do that. So I'm going to open up by providing a brief overview of what we did on our last call, so that if you didn't finish it, you'll be aware of what we did go over.
Okay, awesome.
So this first thing that we went over is called the 5 circles of influence. This is going to be a big focus of this academy, is the idea of change yourself. So this circle, essentially the idea is that you have to work your way from the inside out, starting with yourself, becoming aware of who you are and where you want to be in the future, leading yourself before you go on to lead your family, your team, your organization, your community. Right now, we're still focusing on that self aspect. We also talked about these 4 different types of personalities that DECA Inc. uses in their Empower Leadership program for members like yourselves. So those are drivers. These are the kinds of people that you see as CEOs in companies. They are that executive type. You also have energizers. So these are those connectors. They like working with people. They're fun loving. You have caretakers. I'm a caretaker myself. So these are people that are very people oriented. And then you also have analyzers. Those are logical thinkers, very good problem solvers. So that's a brief overview of what we went over last time. Again, if you haven't watched the full video, or if you want to refresh, you can find that on YouTube. So essentially what we're going to be doing today is if you took the Myers-Briggs test like Hunter, that's awesome. It gives you kind of a base understanding of what we're doing here. But essentially what we're doing is we are diving even deeper into those personality types by using a different program called the Myers-Briggs program, and I'll talk about what that is. But essentially what you can do to get the most out of the session is to share your ideas. So this will be a discussion between the 3 of us, and the people watching the video will be able to hear your ideas. So feel free to share personal stories, share your experiences, ask questions when they come up, and respond to one another. That's really how you're going to get the most out of this. If you don't have it already, I encourage you guys to get a writing utensil and some paper, because each time that you decide on an aspect of your personality, you're going to want to write it. And also, if you want to the call, and then when you're ready to start the microphone. So again, taking notes, and all of this back to your chapters. And then you can also schedule one-on-ones with me to go deeper into these leadership styles. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, cool. So what the Myers-Briggs personality test is essentially what it does is it classifies your personality based upon your nature and your nurture. So it says, your personality, what makes you, you, is a combination of nature, how you were born. So those are the things that you can't control, your genetics, and then also your nurture. So how your parents raised you, the kinds of friends that you have and the people that you surround yourself with, the things that you do every day. Those are the things that make up your personality. So what Myers-Briggs does is it breaks down your personality into your traditional behaviors, the way that you see the world, but also how you project and impact other people in your life. As we're going through this, though, I want you guys to understand that classifying yourself within a personality does not put you in a box. It doesn't say that you are only the aspects of this personality. In fact, it's really just a process to make sure that you are asking yourself those test questions to be self-reflective and to make sure that you're improving and just being aware of yourself. So again, it doesn't put you in a box at all. And so for Hunter, since you already took the test, the idea is to understand your profile, understand the type that it gave you from that test and from your answers, but to go back and now validate it and go through every single letter and say, is this really applicable to me? So an example of this is every single time I take the test, and this will make more sense, James, once we go through the process, I come up as an ENFJ protagonist. But every time I go through this process, discussing it with people and asking myself these questions, I come out as an ISFJ defender. So the idea is that, again, you're not being put in a box, but also we're taking down those barriers of what you might want your personality to be. So Hunter, maybe when you were going through the test, it asked you a series of questions, and sometimes without even realizing it, at no fault of our own, we can kind of answer in a way that we want to be seen or how we want others to perceive us. And so the idea is to go back through those letters and really try to be honest with ourselves, because there is no right personality type. In fact, we need all of them in order to have a strong team. So does that make sense? Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the PowerPoint. We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, feel free to ask questions at any time, and I'll be asking you guys to jump in and provide feedback and just be taking notes as we go. All right, let's dive right in. So, okay. So your Myers-Briggs personality type. We're asking, do you identify with the personality type that the test gave you? And then for James and anybody else that's listening, we're just going through this process, and you can go back and take the test later if you would like. So Myers-Briggs, it breaks your personality down into these 4 main types. The first is extroversion versus introversion. The second is sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, and then judging versus perceiving. Some of these names are a little bit ambiguous, so I'm going to walk you guys through this to provide a base understanding of what exactly we're looking at. So, extroverted versus introverted people. This is something that we tend to be pretty familiar with. But sometimes there can be a negative connotation with people who are introverted. They can be seen as too quiet, too reserved. So this is an example of where you kind of want to strip away any sort of connotation with these things, because again, there's no good or bad personality type. So being extroverted or introverted, all that means is, where do you get your energy? Extroverted people get their energy from being around other people. These are the types of people that want to work in group settings. Introverted people, they are the kind that just need to kind of take a step back sometimes and have those recharge moments. Introverted people can function very well in extroverted environments, especially as a state officer. Sometimes, especially at conferences when you're around people all the time, you have to take that time to be by yourself in order to recharge and be your best self. So that's what extroverted versus introversion really is. Then you have sensing versus intuition. So is your focus on the physical world as it is right here, right now? Or are you comfortable entertaining other possibilities with your imagination? Do you think about the future, what could be? Thinking versus feeling is pretty straightforward. Do you make decisions with your head? Are you a logical thinker? Or do you make decisions, by that gut instinct, by your emotions? And then you have judging versus perceiving. So are you more comfortable with structure, with organization, with being prepared? Or are you more of that go with the flow kind of person, being spontaneous? So that's an overview of what we're looking at. That's what we're going to be diving into. And we are going to go ahead and dive into each of these columns in specific. So, Hunter, I'm curious, what is your personality type, and just what is your initial reaction to it if you happen to look over your profile a bit, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
So I've taken the test before, and I've gotten the same twice, so it's INFP-T, yeah. And for the most part, I mean, I guess that I kind of agreed with most of like what it explained. So yeah.
Awesome. That's great. A lot of people they take the test multiple times and they keep getting that same answer. So that's interesting. It probably means that you're answering the questions very honestly. but you never know. So just be open to changing those letters as we go through this. I've taken this test probably a few times over the past few years, and I always get that protagonist type, but then I ended up changing those first two letters. And sometimes I wonder, well, maybe I'm not an I, maybe I'm not an S. So it can kind of change a little bit. Again, it's just about being familiar with it. All right, are there any questions before we jump back into it? Awesome. Okay, here we go. So let's start with extroversion. So these are the people that other people would describe as being outgoing. They're people. They're a people person. They feel comfortable working in those group projects. They have a lot of friends, so they're more focused on that wide circle of friends than having a close or tight-knit group. Sometimes they might jump really quickly in an activity because they don't think it over as much. They go kind of on that instinct reaction. It says, before I start a project, I sometimes forget to stop and get clear on what I want to do and why. So again, they're kind of go with the flow. So that's what extroversion means. Go ahead and take a moment to look over these bullet points and ask yourself those questions. Does that sound like you? And maybe one of them stands out over another, but just ask yourself, does this speak to you or does it not? When you're ready, just go ahead and give a thumbs up in the screen. Awesome. Cool. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to introversion, so the opposite of extroversion. So these are people that appear very reflective. They might be a bit reserved. They are the people in school that prefer to work on those solo projects. They aren't big fans of group work. They prefer to have a close circle of friends. They're not as caught up with the numbers as they are concerned with the quality of their friend groups. Sometimes they might spend too much time reflecting that they don't allow enough time and energy to actually take action and get whatever it is that they need to get done. Sometimes they might be so reflective as well that they don't remember to open up and look at other people, look at the world around them. So those are some traits of introverted people. Again, this is just about where you get your energy. So go ahead and take a moment to look those over again. Consider what speaks most directly to you. And in a moment, we'll have a discussion about what you're kind of deciding on. All right, James, you all good? Awesome. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and unmute your mics. Whoever would like to go first, which letter are you leaning towards? Just what's your gut telling you speaks most directly to you?
I said that I'm more of a extraversion.
Extrovert, yeah. Okay.
Extrovert. I'm more of an extrovert because I am outgoing person. I'm more of an outgoing person, like it said.
Okay.
And I don't think
guys when you're around people.
I feel like I'm more on that side rather than introvert.
Okay.
I do not think I am an introversion because I don't feel like I go into like the small crowds, like it said. I feel like I like have more friends at school and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I'm more of a like outgoing person.
Okay, got you. So when you were at WRLC, did you love getting to meet new people, being around people? Okay. Okay. Awesome. That's cool. So you feel comfortable with E.
Yeah, rather than I.
Okay, so go ahead and write that down and save that. So that'll make the first category for your personality type. Hunter, what about you? What's pulling you? I know that you were an I according to the test. Does that still stand, or are you leaning one or the other way?
Yeah, I'd say I'm more closely to an I, mainly because normally I am pretty reflective on like my actions sometimes and things that I've done in the past, and I think a lot about it, and I'd say I'm like more close with, I have a lot more close relationships with friends. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, you were speaking to a lot of aspects of that introverted side, and that's really good that you're aware of that. It's important to see like those are two very different sides, but we need them both, right? Like we're around different personalities all the time, and sometimes it's easy to pick out those extroverts and those introverts, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes a person that we might think is really extroverted is really just an introvert that is able to step out of their shell a little bit. So it's good to be able to bring out that other personality type every once in a while, to maybe be more reflective if you're an extrovert, and maybe be a little bit more outgoing every once in a while when you're an introvert. Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions on that aspect?
No.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to the next aspect.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. So now we have sensing versus intuition. So sensing, these are people who remember events as snapshots of what actually happened. So they remember specific events for the occurrences that took place there. They solve facts. They solve problems by working through facts. So we're starting to see a trend here. They are very focused on that real world aspect. They're pragmatic. They look to the bottom line. What is the real goal here? So they start with facts and then they form a big picture. So some people might start with that big idea and then they work their way down to the specifics. Sensing personality types have a tendency to start from the bottom, focusing on those details, and then they form that big picture. They trust experience. They trust that firsthand experience, what they know, more than they trust ideas or imagination or words or symbols. Some would say, though, that they pay too much attention to facts. Maybe they're too caught up with the past. Maybe they're too caught up with the present moment, that they're not thinking enough about the future and about the potential for growth, for new opportunities. So go ahead and look that one over. Consider if you might be sensing, if this sounds like you, or if it really doesn't. So just take a second to look that over and let me know when you are ready. Awesome.
All right, I'm all good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, intuition. So this is the other side of that sensing aspect. So these are the people that remember events for what they read between the lines. So the feeling that they had about whatever situation you're dealing with. They solve problems by leaping between different ideas and possibilities. So for example, when you're on a team of people, the sensing type might be sitting back and listening to all these ideas jumping around between people, and all they're thinking about is how half of them are not going to work. The intuition people, they're the ones that are jumping those ideas back and forth. They have to throw everything out into the open before they can narrow things down. So going along with that, they start with that big picture and then they go to the facts. So opposite of that funnel. They trust impressions and metaphors more than what they actually experienced. So even though they might value those experiences and facts, they go with their gut more. They go with what they feel is their intuition, their instinct. Sometimes they're thinking so much about those new possibilities, though, that they aren't paying enough attention to the facts. And so that's another scenario where you need both the intuition types and the sensing types. So go ahead and look that over one more time, deciding if you lean more towards intuition or sensing, or if you're torn between the two.
I think I know which one I am.
What are you leaning towards, James?
I think I'm more of an S.
Okay.
In my opinion.
What makes you lean towards sensing?
Because I solve problems by going by facts.
Okay.
I use facts to solve problems and stuff and form ideas and use imagination to make a big picture like you were saying. I feel like I'm more of that one over an I, because I kind of just didn't really stick with me. I felt like I was more of an S over an I.
Okay, got it. Yes. So on this one, the letters are a little bit confusing. So
ES.
So yes, you are ES, and then for intuition, so the opposite of sensing, they actually use the letter N. So you are not an N, though, you are an S, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So do you have kind of a hard time when people are throwing out ideas just to throw them out, but they haven't really thought about how it's going to work? Does that ever make you uncomfortable?
When they throw out ideas without like having facts to support it, you mean?
Right.
Kind of
Yeah.
like
When
that.
people are just brainstorming maybe, but
Well, brainstorming, I like brainstorming, and then taking those brainstorms and then kind of using factual evidence to like kind of back it up from there to make a big picture, like you were saying. So like
okay.
you can use facts to go from brainstorming. You
Got
know?
it. Okay. Got it. Yeah. So you're focused on that fact side, making sure that
Kind
things
of.
happen.
But brainstorming is good too on the
Okay.
other side.
Yeah, it sounds like that's where it's good to be able to step into those other personalities as well. And one thing to keep in mind is that you may not find that one letter embodies you entirely and speaks entirely to you. You might see, for example, like I feel like I'm very extroverted in a lot of situations, but sometimes I feel very, very introverted, especially compared to other people that I'm around. So it's totally
so you can kind of switch.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the idea is you want to know kind of where you're leaning, which letter you're leaning towards. But it's good to be able to, for example, to be able to brainstorm, but then also be that person that reins things in, focuses on the facts.
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
What about you?
So I'm an ES.
Yes, you are an ES thus far.
So for my letters, INFP, I would say I would lean more to S for this, like with the example you used, when people are throwing a bunch of facts and then you think about how like half of them might not work. I'd say I would tend to do something like that, and I like to lean a little more for the facts and think of the facts and then form a big picture. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So you switched letters, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. This is where it gets really interesting is when you start to see, okay, well, the Myers-Briggs test that I took online, that was helpful. But once I start really diving into these letters, maybe I realize that I'm a little bit different. And sometimes when we look at various scenarios and various aspects of each letter, we're able to get a more full circle view of ourselves. But great. That's awesome. And feel free to always come back to these if you're ever unsure. But it's interesting to see them change. All right. Are we ready to move on to the next category? Cool. All right. So next we're going to be talking about thinking versus feeling. So thinking people. These are the people that you might see them in STEM a lot because they like following the rules. They like having a logical explanation for things. They like it when things are predictable and understandable. These are also the kinds of people that are very good at editing and noticing inconsistencies and mistakes. Whenever they're given a situation, they're always thinking, well, there has to be an explanation for this. There has to be some sort of logical reasoning behind this. They make decisions with their head. They want to be fair and pragmatic. These are the people, when presented with a difficult situation, they value truth more over being tactful, more over saving people's feelings. But sometimes other people might view them as not putting enough value on the people aspect of situations, not putting enough value in the instinctual and emotional aspects of making decisions. And sometimes they can be a little bit too task-oriented, uncaring, or indifferent. This is how other people might perceive them. But they are definitely those logical thinkers. So go ahead and take a look over this and notice what does or does not speak to you.
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Okay, so then feeling, the other side of this, So these are the people they're very people oriented, very compassionate, very good at empathizing and understanding the situations of other people. They really care about having harmony. So these are the people on a team that really want to make sure that everybody's getting along well, and that everybody's happy. And when that isn't the case, they can become concerned. They look for what is important to others, and they really express concern for that. They want to be sure that they are speaking to what people really care about. They make decisions with their heart, a little bit more than their head. So, we live in a very pragmatic world, but these are the people that are also able to think, maybe there's an emotional side of this, a way that I should go with my gut. They believe that being tactful is important, but again, that the cold truth can sometimes be hurtful, and that's not always worth it. So maybe saving people's feelings is a little bit more than the truth, more important than the truth, depending on the situation. And then maybe as a result of that, they miss the hard truth because they might be being too idealistic, reading between the lines too much. Looking at it from a too much of an emotional perspective. Others might see them as idealistic, mushy, or indirect because they are focused on that emotional aspect. So go ahead and look that over, see if that speaks to you. Maybe if you know any people like this as a frame of reference, but kind of get a feel for this letter as well.
I know someone as an F, and they're state officers at Arborview DECA. Helma Rivera and Denasia Thompson. They're both feelers at Arborview High School. I know that for a fact.
I don't have all of our personality types memorized, but Denasia and Hilma are very compassionate, very people. I'm sure you are likely right about that. So it's interesting when we kind of are able to read other people's personalities as well.
Yeah.
But which one are you guys leaning towards?
I feel like thinkers are good to have, but feelers, I feel like I'm more of a feeler. Even though I'm a guy, I feel like I'm more of a feeler because I feel like I'm a thinker, but feelers more on my side because I feel like I'm concerned with others and their feelings too. So I'm concerned with others, and I make decisions like within my heart, kind of like that was one of the things. So.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that you brought up that, thinkers are important, that even though you're a guy, you feel like you are a feeler. It's so important to be like honest with yourself when you're going through this, because sometimes we think like, well, I identify more, like I feel like I fit more this personality type, but other people are telling me to be like this personality type. When really, like, you can't change who you are unless you know who you are, right? And you don't have to change who you are. So, and we need feelers and thinkers, and you don't have to be a guy in order to be a thinker. You know what I mean? So I think that's really interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up. So you feel like you are able to make decisions with your heart, that you're able to kind of go off.
More of a feel, yeah.
Okay, that's important. I'm also a feeler, and sometimes we need those thinker personalities to kind of help us to find that middle ground between making a logical decision and also an emotionally aware one. So again, it's important.
Definitely.
Awesome. Hunter, what about you?
For this one, so on my test, it was an F, but I think this time, like for this, I'd be like more torn between the two because I would say like, I do like to think logically sometimes and think more critically, but then at the same time, I do care about others, how they feel, and yeah.
Okay. So do you find difficulty when you have to make like a gut or an instantaneous decision just based on what you feel given the certain situation?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I feel like me and Hunter kind of connect because we both kind of are like in between a feeler and a thinker.
Okay. So are you guys more comfortable when you're able to make a decision, when you're able to have time to think through a decision logically, or are you okay making those gut decisions?
I feel like I'm more of a thinker. I don't know about taking gut decisions. I feel like thinking logically, but feeling at the same time is important to do.
Okay. Okay. What about, okay. When you guys are presented with a situation, let's say you have a friend come to you with a challenge. So you have a friend that they're coming to you with an issue. Is your first instinct to comfort them, or is your first instinct to provide a solution for how they can solve their problem? What's the first thing that you would think to do?
Now that's a hard question. I think I would feel.
Okay.
I don't know, comfort them.
I would probably try and provide a solution first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would also try to solve a solution.
Got it. Okay. So it sounds like you're a little bit in between, James. A little bit?
I think that I would solve a solution, give them a solution, but like comfort them.
Okay. So how I approach this, I'm a feeler myself, and again, we're all different people, but how I know that if somebody comes to me with an issue, my first instinct is to comfort them. And then when I feel they are ready and they're emotionally ready to hear a solution, then I offer the solution. But my first instinct is to comfort them. It's kind of like that hard truth aspect. Like, I don't want to offer that solution unless they are ready for it, right? So maybe that brings a little bit more clarity to it. But so Hunter, are you leaning towards more that thinking side?
Maybe because like I feel like I offer like a solution, but like at the same time I make sure to like be more concerned.
I feel like I'm an F. I'm gonna put an F. ESF.
Okay, that seems like kind of what you were leaning towards at the beginning. But again, this isn't supposed to put you in a box. If you choose F, that doesn't mean that you think logically, you know?
Definitely.
But it can be challenging when you have to sit down and decide, right? So Hunter, you're still kind of torn a little bit. Do you feel comfortable choosing a letter, or do you want to kind of put it on hold for a second? Or do you have more questions about it?
No, I'd be comfortable with choosing one. Yeah.
With what?
See?
I'd be comfortable with choosing a letter.
Okay.
Probably more of a T, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. How about you write that down for now, and then if you want to write any of these sentences down that were here on those slides, or come back to that video, you can go over it again and try to rethink it a little bit. But again, it's just about becoming more aware of it. But this can be one of the tougher ones, especially because there are a lot of people that fall within that middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the last category. So judging versus perceiving. The judging. These are the people that like to make a plan, decide on it, stick to it. They're task-oriented. These are the people at school that might use like an agenda or a planner. They have a list of things to do. Maybe they're making multiple to-do lists. Those are your judging personalities. They don't like the idea of rushing to meet a deadline. So, they're not big on procrastinating. You don't tend to see a lot of that with a judging personality. Sometimes they focus so much on the goal that they're trying to meet and the plan that they've set up to reaching that goal, that they can be jarred when new information comes up, or when they're forced to be adaptable and flexible. They have a hard time doing that because they're so set on sticking to a plan. So go ahead and look that over and see if that speaks to you. When you're ready, we will move on to perceiving as well.
All right, I'm good.
All right, awesome. Okay, so that's judging. Perceiving. So these are the people that, again, they kind of go with the flow. They are the people that when something pops up and they need to be adaptable, they need to be flexible, they are the ones you're going to go to. So they are always open to respond to whatever life throws at them. They might appear to be kind of loose and kind of casual, again, going with the flow, and they're not big on making plans. So this can be a little bit frustrating to those judging personality types when they're trying to make a plan, they want to set a deadline, and these other people are wanting to be a little bit more adaptable and flexible with it. They work in bursts of energy, so again, going with the flow when it feels right, when they feel that spontaneous creative burst. They are stimulated by an approaching deadline. So sometimes you hear that, well, procrastination works for me. It helps me to get stuff done. It helps me to be creative. These are those perceiving personality types. Sometimes they stay so open to new information that they are able to make decisions when they need to make decisions because they're too busy thinking of the possibilities. They're too busy handling things as they come that they don't have. It's challenging for them to stick to a plan. So that's the perceiving type. Go ahead and look that over and try to think, am I more of a P or a J?
I feel like personally, I'm oriented. Yeah, I'm oriented, but I'm also I don't feel like I'm judging because I feel like I'm more perceiving. Because I kind of go with the flow, I adapt to stuff, but I also am kind of task oriented too. I like to get stuff. I don't like to put stuff off, but I also like to just be open minded.
Okay.
And I feel like I can stick to a plan.
Okay. So
for perceiving, it said that they're not very good at sticking with plans. I feel like I am good at sticking with plans.
All right. So here, let me see. So here, I'll try to reword that. So instead of saying that a perceiving personality is not good at sticking to a plan, they are more comfortable when they have freedom to stray from the plan. They're more comfortable with that. So you can make a perceiving personality. It depends on the person. Some people, know for sure that they fit a specific letter, and sometimes they're in between. So if you're a perceiving personality, you might be able to stick to a deadline, but you're also the person that is ready to adapt and make changes and react quickly. You're the kind of person where when all of a sudden a deadline approaches and you have a day to get it done, you're going to get it done. You're able to do it. Does that sound like you?
I feel like I'm a more perceiving.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hunter, what about you?
I would definitely say I'm a P. I feel like others would probably just would think I'm more of a J, like with the way I'm kind of organized and stuff. But with P, I would definitely say I'm a P because I tend to do work more in bursts of energy. I'll procrastinate a lot, but yeah, I'll work in bursts of energy and kind of mix in work and play sometimes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I'm glad you brought up that work and play aspect because perceiving types, it's not the idea that they don't want to work. It's just that they work when it feels right and when they have that burst of energy. That's very interesting. And sometimes I think, especially in the way that our school system is set up and things like that, you can be a perceiving personality type, but with deadlines and with people expecting you to be on a schedule, sometimes we have to tap into those judging traits as well, right? So I'm glad that you brought that up. So let's see, we should have all of our letters done by now. So James, what is your personality type?
ESFP.
ESFP. What are your initial reactions? What did you think of that?
I felt like that classifies my personality.
Cool.
I really do. I feel like I am all of those things.
Awesome. Okay, and again, I know that as I think you and Hunter were both kind of torn on that thinkers versus feelers one, and
yeah.
And sometimes even after I've taken this test multiple times, sometimes I look back at some of the letters and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I want to change a letter again. So again, it's just about being aware of where you're at right now, but also being open to revisit this throughout. Hunter, what about you? What's your personality type? I know you changed at least one letter, correct? Oh, Hunter, you're muted.
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
So when I took the test, I was an INFP, and then with this, I'm ISTP. So, I mean, I I mean, I feel like it could be more situational with the letters, but yeah, I would say that the I and P definitely stick. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes we're able to be completely sure about one or two letters, but some of them are a little bit difficult to decide on. And so that can either mean, that you are really good at embodying traits of both aspects of that personality, or maybe just go home and try to start observing over the next week, over the next 2 weeks, how you actually do behave in real life. And maybe, if you have your notes with you at various points throughout the day, you can kind of go over that sensing versus, or that thinking versus feeling, or another aspect of the personality to think, today, what did I embody? Is there a trend that I'm seeing, or am I really just all of them? Typically, though, these Myers-Briggs personality types are pretty accurate. So it should be eventually you should be able to decide, which letter you lean a little bit more towards. Again, that doesn't mean that you fall under one box. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see better.
Well, I did take the test one time before we had this meeting, but I didn't remember my letters. So I just retook the test, and I feel like I did get ESP. I was torn kind of between T and F, the thinker and feeler, on my first test, but I think that I did get ES on my first test before we did have our meeting. But I feel like these letters really classified my personality, and I was really happy to attend your leadership academy.
Good. I'm so glad that you were both here, because this, especially when we're going through this process, it's so important to be able to discuss, especially when you're torn, to be able to ask each other questions. And it's interesting to see somebody change types as well. So in our next call, we'll actually be going over, we looked at what your type is right now, but we'll also be going over the strengths and weaknesses that come with your type, and what you can do to actually bring out your strengths even more, and then develop your weaknesses. So that's what we're going to be going over in that next call, scheduled for January 8th at 5 p.m. But I want to thank you both for being here, and I hope that you got a lot out of this. Were there any final questions before we did our debrief? We're just going to take a quick debrief after this.
I've no questions.
Awesome.
We're going to take a debrief. What does that mean?
I'm glad you asked. So the video just stopped recording.